Hi BookTube, today I will be answering the "Oh, just a terrible book" tag, which was created by Stripped Cover Lit, and I think it's one of the best things to have ever come out of BookTube or the internet in general. I just really enjoy it when people are not afraid of embracing their negativity. I think negativity is so necessary and so healthy and so beneficial, and it's something that people are growing more and more afraid of, and that is very sad, because people are missing out on something that is, I think, really really important to the human mental health and the human condition in general. So I think people who are always being correct and polite, that is a sign of that is a symptom. That is a symptom. So never trust a person who is always smiling and always polite, because that is a symptom. Anyway, so the "oh, just a terrible" book tag. Question number one is, what is the worst book that you've ever read for pleasure? And I don't know if this is the worst, like, of my entire life. I think that would be impossible to assess. But the worst book that I've read for pleasure in recent years has definitely been The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, which was the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, I think. That book was atrocious, and the worst thing about reading that book was that I read it all. I read the entire thing, and I kind of got a feeling of being entertained, slightly entertained, while I was reading it. And it wasn't until I was done with the book that I was able to look back and realize that I had been a fucking moron, that I had fallen into this trap, and that it started to dawn on me, like, oh, Juan Pablo, Juan Pablo. I mean, I was just like, hating myself. Like, oh man, how could you let somebody treat you this way? You know, it's like when you break up with someone and you start realizing all the violence and all the weird shit that you let yourself put up with. You know, that's my experience with The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. Question number two is, what is the worst book that you've ever read for school? And oh man, I have plenty, because in my school, like in middle school and in high school, we used to read a lot of really boring biographies of saints and religious people, and a lot of really stupid, illogical texts on various religious topics. But I think the cherry on top, like the worst one, was a book on what they called bioethics, but really what it meant was, it was a book about technology and sex, and basically what this book was trying to say was that sex is the devil and technology is the devil, and if you use technology like condoms or contraceptives of any kind, if you use technology so that you can have sex without reproducing or having any kind of disease, then that is like twice as wrong. So it's like devil times two. So basically, we would read a chapter from this book every week, and we did this for a year. So it was painful and it was ridiculous, because you had to read it. You had to read it because it was a subject at my school. You just had to read it for class, and it was ridiculous. It was insane. I don't understand how some people believe this way, behave this way, and believe in these ridiculous things in the 21st century. Yeah, that was just infuriating to read. Question number three is, who is the worst writer ever? And I guess I'm gonna go with Stephenie Meyer. She's incompetent. I read the first three books in the Twilight series, and then I was reading the fourth one. And honestly, yes, they were incompetently written. Yes, they are truly appalling and horrible. But I had a blast reading those books. It's so delightful, and it brings this awful, sadistic side of me. And I was enjoying reading those books like you have no idea, because they are so incompetent and so horrible that I sort of felt like Adrian Ford when he reviews the Harry Potter books. That's how I felt, but with Twilight. So, of course, they are some of the worst things that I've ever read, and probably some of the worst things ever written. But I really enjoyed myself, so there you go. Number 4, what is the worst book to movie adaptation? Oh, well, with book to movie adaptations, I am usually very forgiving because I understand what a book can do and what a film can do. And most of the times they are not compatible, and you have to be able to come to terms with that. If you're expecting a book that you really love to be faithfully translated, scene by scene, line by line, into film, then your expectations are really, really unrealistic, and you're gonna be disappointed forever. However, if you realize that a film has its own language and its own abilities and skills and limitations as well, then just like a book does, a book has limitations, a book has areas in which it can shine. They're just different media, and they do different things differently. If you realize that, then you will become more forgiving, and you will be able to appreciate the good stuff in both. Now, that being said, there is one book to movie adaptation that I cannot forgive: The Never Ending Story. I realize The Never Ending Story is a movie that a lot of people have watched and a lot of people really love. The book, however, is not as popular. I don't think I don't think many people who enjoy the movie have gone and read the book, and I think that is a shame because they are missing out. Basically, what they did with The Neverending Story when they adapted it into film was they took the book, they destroyed it, like they tore it apart. They tore it apart, and from the remaining pulp, they were able to pick maybe like 2 or 3 chapters out of that mess. And that pulp, 3 chapters worth of story, they translated it into a movie. And yeah, sure, the movie is strange and whimsical, and it has a very particular tone, and I do understand why people like it, but The Neverending Story by Michael Ende is my favorite book. It is a wonderful piece of fantasy, and it's a wonderful book, and I think it's absolutely shameful, disgraceful, and disrespectful what they did with that book. Question number 5 is, what is your least favorite type of booktube video to film? My answer is none, because I enjoy every video that I do for different reasons, but I appreciate and enjoy myself all the time. Number 6, what is your least favorite type of booktube video to watch? Again, if there's a kind of video that I don't like watching, I won't watch it. So poetry readings or poetry reviews, I will never watch them because I am not interested. Question number 7, what is the worst book cover ever? So I have 2 options for this. Firstly, I have to go with this, Vida Nostra by Marina and Sergei Dyachenko, just because I feel like this is such a pornographic cover. This looks like a snapshot taken from a porn clip, I mean, just look at that. I mean, literally look at that and tell me that you are not thinking what I am thinking. You are thinking what I'm thinking. So basically we have a girl and there is white stuff being thrown at her like a fucking like a squirt gun directly to her face, and she's just like trying to protect herself. What the fuck? I mean, this is just tackiness. This is the embodiment of a tacky cover. And maybe I am seeing this sexual element here because I want to see it. I don't care. I think this is one of the worst covers ever. However, the one cover that always makes me feel sad and depressed and disappointed in humankind is this one. This awful, boring cover of 100 Years of Solitude. This is the actual Spanish edition that I've owned for years. And it's just the most bland, boring, tacky, tasteless cover ever. It's a horrible edition. Oh, a bookmark. What do you know? So it just makes me sad because this is such a wonderful book and the cover does nothing for it. It makes me really sad and very disappointed in humankind. Nevertheless, last year or 2 years ago, they came up with a 50th anniversary edition of 100 Years of Solitude, and it's wonderful. It is beautifully illustrated with watercolor pictures and big pages. Like it's a big like coffee table book and really high quality paper, and my faith in humanity was slightly restored. Moving on with question number 8. What is the least fun that you've ever had reading a book? Well, I have different answers for this. Vita Nostra. Excuse me. Vita Nostra by Marina and Sergei Dyachenko was a very difficult read because it is sort of tonally, it's very, very strange. It is a book that makes you feel melancholy and uneasy when you're reading it, but that is part of the book's charm in a way, and it's part of what the book is trying to say. It's part of the statement, the thesis of the book, to make you feel like that. So it was unpleasant as a reading experience, but it was part of the book's merit. So I don't think that is a good enough answer for this question. Another book that was incredibly unpleasant to read was A Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James. I just really, 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 really hated that book. And I hated reading that book, and I hated myself while I was reading that book. I just felt like completely stupid and ignorant and illiterate, and it was not the right book for me. So I really hated reading that. But really, if we are talking about the worst reading experience that I've had in many years, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, Part 1 and 2, supposedly by J.K. Rowling, but not really. It's really by John Tiffany and Jack Thorne. A new play by Jack Thorne. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, bollocks. Oh, when I received this book from the mail, I was like a kid. I was like a fucking kid, you know. I was smiling. I was like feeling the way I felt many years ago when I was reading the Harry Potter series and a new book would come out. I was so excited and hopeful and ready for this. I opened it, and a few pages in, I realized that I was watching someone literally destroy my childhood. And it just went downhill from there. This was like really sad, and not just sad, but it was mostly infuriating. And yeah, there's nothing redeemable about this. Nothing redeemable. You can try to make a point that it's a play. It's supposed to be a play. The staged version of the play is supposed to be amazing and, great special effects and acting and whatever. I don't care. I honestly don't care. If you mess like this with Harry Potter, I'm just not bothered, am I? I cannot be bothered, really. So, no, this is just a pile of bullshit, really. I mean, what the fuck is going on in that cover? Just, I don't understand it, really. The eighth story, 19 years later. Just, And you know what? The worst thing about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is that some people, some young readers, I think, don't have enough criteria to separate this from the real, like the actual Harry Potter series, books 1 to 7, which they are problematic, as Stripped Cover Lit has pointed out in their Adrian Reed's Harry Potter series. Harry Potter has some problems, and you have to be able to see them. But that's that. That's Harry Potter. However, some people actually think that this is part of actual Harry Potter canon, and they actually see this as a sequel or a continuation of that story. And I mean, Stephen Sondheim said it better in the Into the Woods finale. Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. I cannot talk about that book without feeling like my throat is like getting tight and tight and tighter. Anyway, question number 9 is the last book that you DNF'd, and I think that would be As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. However, I didn't DNF it like, I didn't say I am never reading this book. I just put it aside, put it back on the shelf, and I will go back and try again. I will try again when I feel more confident and when I feel more prepared as a reader, when I am a stronger reader, basically. And finally, you have to tag some terrible booktubers and insult them. So I'm gonna tag Chris Bookish Cauldron. Man, can you please read something else other than fantasy? I mean, what are you, 12? Grow up, Chris. I'm also gonna tag Olive from a book Olive because she, Steve Donahue was talking about people who are very inept at booktube, people who have no presentational skills whatsoever in their videos, and I think he was talking about Olive. I mean, Olive needs to learn how to really be formal and really present herself. She needs to learn some presentational skills. I'm also gonna tag Alex from What Page Are You On? Just because the shrillness of him, the loudness of him always annoys me. I mean, if you listen to his videos, you always end up annoyed with just his voice and it's overwhelming. It's just way too much. And another booktuber who I cannot stand is Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse. I mean, that man, he needs to tone it down a little. I mean, he is so fucking aggressive in his videos. Again, he's so loud and he is... I mean, I don't know why he's so angry all the time. And finally, I'm gonna tag Richardson Reads, just because he never has anything good to say. He's like a stereotypical blonde who, just vomits words, but nothing really comes out, nothing worthy of hearing comes out of him. So yeah, I think Richardson Reads, you really need to learn how to convey something, whatever you want, but you don't have any ideas in there. And of course, I was going to tag Steve Donahue, but he beat me to this tag. He already did this, but I'm going to tag him anyway, just so that I can insult him. Steve, I mean, how much time do you spend here on BookTube? Like, what's up with your life? I mean, you can make an appointment with me any day of the week. We can Skype and we can talk about your problems. And that's it. That's the Oh Just a Terrible book tag. I am so happy that I finally got around to do this. Thanks for watching.